morning, Salome B here, and today we're going to talk about who is responsible for the opiate crisis, pharmaceuticals or doctors. Okay, 60 Minutes and the Washington Post team up to investigate one of the worst opiate crises. The plan was to keep opiates off the streets, but this was railroaded, according to Joe Renaceses, who was the most important whistleblower ever. Interviewed by 60 Minutes, Joe Renaceses ran the DEA Office Division Control regulates pharmaceutical industries. Renaceses worked for Division Control. He said the opiate crisis was allowed to spread, aided by Congress, lobbyists, and drug distributors industries that shipped millions of drugs to rogue pharmacies unchecked. Okay? This case is the biggest case the DEA ever built. The McKesson case that was too big to prosecute. The case included 9 DEAs, field divisions, and 12 U.S. attorney building. A powerful case against McKesson for the company's role in the opiate crisis. So McKesson is one of the biggest, largest drug distribution centers, and they are responsible for the opiate crisis. The case was considered the best case against a major distributor in the Drug Enforcement Administration. McKesson is the largest distribution. It has $200 billion in earnings, and Schiller supervised the investigation against McKesson. This was the single most important case against McKesson. The problem was millions and billions of pills to countless pharmacies through the United States. It was shipped through the United States unchecked. McKesson states that the flooding of drugs in the streets of Florida and Colorado communities, enough of the blame goes around to dealers, distributors, pharmaceuticals, and doctors all play a role. McKesson was ordered to pay $13 million in fines in 2008 for failing to report huge orders of hydrocortisone to shady internet pharmacies. Special agent caught McKesson again shipping suspicious orders of opiates. The DEA found McKesson was supplying pharmaceuticals and doctors that were fronts for criminal drug rings, and pills ended up on the black market. Schiller said, all for financial gain, not caring that they were killing people. Okay? Schiller says McKesson has fueled the opiate addiction problem in America, and if McKesson would have stayed compliant, the epidemic would not exist. Schiller thought holding McKesson responsible was the right thing to do. Now, the law requires the pharmaceuticals to report and stop large suspicious orders of drugs. McKesson did not do this until it was under investigation. McKesson wasn't reporting this at all. McKesson was shipping opiates to small town pharmacies in Colorado and San Luis Valley as it would ship to medical centers. McKesson supplied so much to a community resident that each resident could get 60 to 50 pills a month, which is bad. They were getting 100,000 pills to one community. McKesson would raise the pharmacy limit, and this is how they were getting around not reporting. They would raise the pharmacy limit of what the pharmacy is supposed to have, and they would ship. They would ship large orders, and they would not question these large orders to pharmacies. No order, no matter how large, was not reported. And this is rigging the system. McKesson is guilty of going over the threshold. So there's a threshold that pharmacies can have. And these pharmacies were requesting large orders from McKesson, and McKesson was not suspicious of this. Special Agent Schiller wanted to show McKesson a lesson by prosecuting them. They wanted to fine the company $1 billion and revoke registration for controlled substance. The Justice Department retreated at the thought of going after McKesson and its high-powered legal team. Schiller was told they did not want to prosecute because McKesson lawyers had gone to Yale University and Harvard, and Schiller was told the case would take too much time and effort, and they were afraid of losing. Now, this is what the Justice Department was saying. Whistleblower Joe Renacisis was sounding alarms because the DEA were bending to the will of Congress to pharmaceutical companies. Schiller was asked to take a more softer approach to the McKesson case or the industries. Renacisis got a letter saying to play nice. So Renacisis was asked to play nice and go easy on McKesson, and all these drug companies were shipping pain medicines to and these pain medicines got on the black market and into the streets. Now, in this documentary, they showed a map of how many people died over opiate overdoses. Who died because of opiate drug overdoses, and the map is full. The map is really, really full. A lot of people have died. Over 29,000 people have died over opiate addiction. McKesson was told by Renacisis either comply or lose registration. Instead of fining McKesson what the DEA wanted, $1 billion, they paid $150 million. Schiller said it was a slap on the wrist. Schiller says they should go to jail instead of writing a check, getting special treatment from the DEA. So Schiller believes that the drug company got special treatment from the DEA because they had a lot of money and they could pay off whoever. So Schiller came to 60 Minutes and the Washington Post because he said that the opiate epidemic he didn't like what the opiate epidemic was doing to the country. So he wanted to get the truth out. Okay, so McKesson sent 60 Minutes a statement. In the interest of moving beyond disagreement, the company agreed to settle with the DEA and the DOJ. So the Justice Department and the DEA settled with McKesson and made McKesson only pay $150 million in fines, and people are dead. And they think that a fine will just make it go away, and it's not. So McKesson promised to do a better job with flagging orders. The prosecutor's case slowed down, and the DEA would now need more evidence to approve the prosecution of the distributors. So the DEA was having a hard time prosecuting companies that were shipping large orders of opiates and hydrocodone. And they started to get bogged down, and the the Department of Justice would always ask them for more evidence before they could prosecute these distributors. So the Department of Justice basically retreated on prosecuting drug companies like McKesson. And the DEA case against these companies was slowed down and was bogged down. And right after that, what was going on was the lawyers that were working in the DEA switched sides and started working for the $1 million companies that were shipping the drugs to these pharmacies. So they were switching sides, and then they would poke holes in the cases and say that the case was too weak for the Justice Department to prosecute. So you have a big mess here. And Joe Renassisi said, why are we not treating this like the war on drugs? He said that the pharmaceuticals and the doctors are just drug dealers in lab coats. And I was like, wow, this is very interesting. It's a very interesting revelation. So what happened next is companies like McKesson started to lobby in Congress and got a bill passed stating that patients are allowed to get access to pain medicine, and they are not, they should not be stopped or refused. So this is how the opiate crisis is being viewed. They made a law stating that patients should have access to pain medicines regardless of anything. Let them get pain medicine. There were also doctors that were going around giving lectures in the 1980s stating that doctors should use opiates because they're not addictive. So prescribe as many as you can. And this is where the opiate crisis is coming. So Congress passed a law, passed that law. Obama signed it into law, and now people can get opiates anywhere on the street because pharmacies and doctors are just prescribing them willy-nilly. Like, they prescribe how many, you don't care. The law states that patients should get unlimited access to pain medicines. And this is, Eric Holder said that they need to be warned about families getting a hold to these drugs easily. And it's easy to get now because of that law. So Renassisi was he resigned because he was getting so much pushback. Congress was in on it. Congress basically is supporting the drug companies. And Joe Renassisi was asked by Congress to be investigated because he said Congress was working along with these drug companies to further allow drugs to flood the streets of America. So this is what's going on, and this is how the opiate crisis has gotten out of hand. Tell me what you think. Is there anybody in your family that has an opiate addiction, that they're getting it freely? What do you think about the bill passed stating that patients are supposed to have access to pain medicines at all times? Tell me what you think. Like, share, subscribe, so long, be. Have a great day.